Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 96. This week we're answering more of your questions and asking, with or without Manu, what does the future of the England midfield look like? You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Hey guys, welcome back. 2 episodes on the bounce. We are definitely improving, and of course, joining me today, as always, is Dan. Hi, mate.
Hi, mate. Well, it's all started again, so things are getting interesting, and it was a good week of rugby. And obviously, I don't need to remind you this, but as it's my birthday tomorrow and birthday week, we thought we'd make the effort to get one out. But I'm sure you don't need reminding. I'm sure you and Luce have been busy all week shopping for me.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Well,
is it all right if I wish you a happy birthday now?
No, that's not even close.
Except we'll probably put this out tomorrow, so therefore I'm effectively wishing you a happy birthday on the day.
Yeah, I think you are as well aware of anyone of the type of hissy fits I can throw. So you do whatever you think's right. What do you think Jesus would do?
It's a very good question. Okay, well in that case, let's crack on with the episode and we can worry about your birthday tomorrow.
Okay.
So to get started, we obviously read out a few emails last week, but they were getting pretty long, so we missed one. So we're coming back to that today. So this is in reference to episode 94, so not the last episode, but the one before. It's from Joe Reed, who I think's been in touch with us before, but I could be wrong. And he says,
"No, I'm sure he has. Yeah."
He says, absolutely brilliant, top quality reporting on the DC situation. Not sure why both accounts can't be entirely accurate, i.e. George Ford's cousin planned it with Jimbo, the police officer. Anyway, good to get another one so soon, especially with such great answers. The kicking/captaincy makes sense, and May with Ashton was my thoughts as well. Just wanted your honest opinion, given the depth we seem to have when there aren't injuries about. I have no business knowledge. By the way, I only collected my GCSE results today. So one of our younger listeners...
I'm still pretty sure that Joe, I hope you did well in your GCSEs, mate, and I'm still pretty sure your business knowledge will be stronger than mine.
Almost definitely. But he has more questions. So he says, more questions, fewer this time. Figured you might have lots to talk about, what with Ashton's suspension, whatever happens with Cipriani and the upcoming Premiership. Now, obviously, we've covered some of that because this is, as I say, a bit of a delayed response. But he says, thoughts on Chris Ashton's suspension, probably something you'll cover anyway, but doesn't look great. I think we did cover it. I think, to be honest, it was one of those things. It happened. He'll serve his time and not too concerned about it. You?
Well, it's actually something I've got down to sort of discuss at a bit more length because it is going to play a factor. I think we've got to look at it. If you look at the way some of the other people are playing, Ashton could be leaving himself, a fair bit of work to do.
True. All right, well, we can talk about that. Shall I go through all the questions then, and then we'll
go through it all. Then we'll go back. Yeah.
Okay. So next he says, would I be the first person to make the point that Dan Robson and Danny Cipriani will no longer be playing together at club level? So whether there's a question mark there, I don't. Yeah, we can go into that. If you had the choice between getting Alex Goode at fullback, but you have to play Mike Brown on the wing at the expense of May or Ashton, not necessarily losing them from the full 23 though, or having Mike Brown at fullback. With May and Ashton starting and Goode nowhere in the team ever, which one would you choose? And he says, if Manu Tuilagi were to get, God forbid, injured again, who's your first choice for 13? Both given our current options and if miraculously the All Blacks, apart from Tuilagi, were fit to play. What? I think he means if all the backs. In fact, that's what he wrote. If all the backs, apart from Tuilagi, were fit to play. As a follow-up, would you ever consider playing the person in combination with Tuilagi and putting Farrell at 10 if Eddie doesn't pick Cipriani again? I honestly don't think Eddie's the sort of bloke to do that. If he picked Cipriani, he did it because he wanted to, not because everyone else told him to. Great quality yet again. Hope these questions are all right. Joe?
For a young lad, he knows his rugby, doesn't he?
He certainly does, or he's just he listens to us and he's learning a lot from
that must be it.
Our wealth of experience.
Yeah, it must be us. Yeah.
So, Should we start then with the Ashton stuff, as you've got some things to say there?
Yeah, I do have some things to say there, and it's a good point. Initially, when it happened, so I don't think that Eddie is going to sort of not pick Ashton because he's been suspended. I don't think he'll pick based on behaviours. Like, I don't think there'll be a behavioural aspect here. But where it does leave Ashton in trouble is you got to look at some of the performances. Now, if you look at, I'm not sure, Elliot Daly's try this weekend was absolutely brilliant. If he's playing well and he's potentially on the wing and Johnny May's scoring tries again, you've got to go with the guys who are on form and are performing, and Ashton just won't have that chance to show it. So that's where I think,
I guess the thing,
you could have some problems.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Daly,
Lewington for Saracens as well is playing really well.
The thing with Daly, though, is that Eddie, it seems, is pretty keen on having him at fullback. Obviously, Watson, injuries looking like it's going to keep him out for even longer. So I think at the moment he's, unfortunately, it kind of goes into another question later on, but unfortunately I just think Alex Good is not in contention for some reason. And therefore I think you're looking at either Brown or Daly at fullback, and given what happened in South Africa, I think he's looking Daly at fullback.
I agree with you, mate. I think he is looking Daly at fullback. I don't really understand. Another fullback who's potential option is Woodward at Gloucester.
Yeah.
I don't really understand why he's not been looked at more. But it's actually it is an interesting point. So to answer that question with Alex Good and Mike Brown, I would probably go with none of the above. I would probably look at Daly at fullback, not because I don't think Alex Good should be there, because I think he should, but just he's not in contention. And although, yes, we do. What's our dream team? We've also got to look at things with a bit of clarity, a bit of reality, and say, but I don't think he's in the market for somebody else to come into that fullback position. So I think it's a straight shootout between Brown and Daly, with Daly at the moment.
Well, I still think that, I said it back when they went to South Africa. I think Brown was there on the wing to offer support to Daly from an experience point of view. And I think his time with England might be coming to an end. That's the call I'm making. I know he obviously played well on the wing, but possibly that's because he had an inkling that this was, going to be one of his last few outings in an England shirt. I have a suspicion that there might be something there. So we'll watch this space and see if I might be completely wrong, but I wonder if Daly is going to be the new fullback, and with the options available on the wing, whether Brown misses out completely. Because I can't see Brown I can't see Brown on the bench. I don't really see the value of having him on the bench.
Eddie does love Mike Brown.
He does, but
Mike Brown does offer something.
Well, I mean, we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's my prediction now. Anyway, we'll see whether I get it right or not. Okay, so moving on. So the next question he asked was about Dan Robson and Danny Cipriani no longer playing together.
Yeah,
I mean that's the thing with this question is it's sort of irrelevant, because apparently Dan Robson only gets selected in the squad, but no one actually wants to see him play.
Yeah, it's so them not playing together. What will that make a thing? I mean, Eddie doesn't seem to put huge emphasis on on those partnerships. It's something we've spoken about before, hasn't it? Like the partnerships, and I think there was a massive missed opportunity not to play Robson and Cipriani on the South Africa tour. And if that hasn't happened now, I think the task is harder for Robson. He does.
It is harder, but he just needs to keep doing what he's doing. I mean, the fact is he's shown that he's capable. He's the closest thing we have. If you're not going to play Danny Kerr for whatever reason, and we'll see whether or not that's anything gets turned around there. But if you're not playing Danny Kerr, Dan Robson is a bit like a Danny Kerr. He's a bit of a sniper, and we don't have that. If Ben Youngs is the first choice. Again, whether that is
Ben Youngs can do that a bit.
I don't know. I've always seen the Youngs Care partnership working because they're quite different. Ben Youngs is a bit more traditional. Danny Care's a bit more of a sniper, a bit more of a chancer, and the combination of the two, particularly if you're bringing Danny Care on for 20 minutes, adds that injection of pace and that injection of something that you need just to turn things around. And I think if you've got two guys who are quite similar, then the whole kind of bringing someone on for 20 minutes, it doesn't offer anything new other than just a little bit more energy, perhaps.
Yeah. Do you think Danny Care is going to get the call up? I mean, it's never occurred to me he hadn't till he wasn't sort of picked for South Africa, and then obviously at that first training camp or that first get together, he wasn't. He was marked as not available for selection for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think we need to caveat this, but we don't actually know if there's more to it than simply not selected. I have read a few things that suggested that Eddie's told him he needs to go and work on a few bits, but which would imply that Eddie's not saying, you're not selected, but I still see you involved, but you need to go and fix a few problems first. But I mean, we initially, when we heard the news, assumed he must be injured or something, and then we looked into it and realised that wasn't the case. I didn't think he'd been playing particularly badly. I mean, I know Quinn's didn't have a great season, so maybe he's been looking at his club form and decided that something was lacking. Maybe it was about giving him a kick up the arse, but then you would have expected that he'd be back in the fold after the South Africa tour. So yeah, I don't know. I hope he's still involved. I like Danny Care, but equally,
I like Danny
equally
Care.
I want to see Dan Robson, and I think if Dan Robson can go in and do that same sort of job, then maybe there isn't room for two, Danny Care type players. Just like I don't think there's room for two Ben Youngs type players. I think you need that combination. So I hope Dan Robson gets a shout, but if he's not going to, then I hope Danny Care isn't completely kind of cut off from the England side.
Yeah, I hope not. I don't think he will be, but there have been a few flags raised of recent with regards to sort of Eddie's sort of almost dismissal of him. But it could also depend on who is playing at 10, which I think was another question that Joe mentioned.
Yeah, so he's saying if so it's kind of a two-parter. So if Manu Tuilagi was to get injured, now obviously we're making a huge assumption that Manu Tuilagi is the starting 13 if he's fit, and I suspect that is the way that Eddie's going, and particularly with Manu's current form, he's looking dangerous again. He's not quite back where he was, but he's getting there. But he's saying, if Tuilagi was to get injured and therefore not available for England, two things. One, who would therefore be your next first choice 13 based on, I guess, Farrell at 12? And then the second part of the question is, even with Tuilagi involved, is there an argument to suggest that Farrell at 10 with a 12 and 13 consisting of Manu, who would be his centre partner?
So I think, my feeling on this is, I mean, Cipriani again had a great week and another beautiful pass. I personally think the pass in the first week was better than his one last week. But I mean, it's those moments of magic.
Yeah, well, the pass in that for the first week was more considered. He had a bit more time. You could see that his brain obviously was working really quickly, but you could see he kind of looked up, saw the space, and bang, pass went out. The second one was a bit more chancery, but he clearly was aware of whereabouts people were, and when the ball came to him, he didn't have time to look. It was just react, and being the quality fly half that he is, he was able to react and put in a kind of perfectly floated ball to exactly where it needed to go. So they were very different, but both moments of genius.
So, yeah, I mean, he's really had a good couple of weeks. He is something special.
I think we're both in agreement that our preference is Cipriani at 10, Farrell at 12. But to answer this question...
It is, but George Ford is also playing very well.
Yeah,
he had a great game at the weekend.
But to go back to the question, if we assume that firstly Farrell's at 12 and Manu's not available, who's at 13?
So it's a tough one. So on form, the best player at the moment is Henry Slade for that position. He had another great outing for Exeter. I don't think
he's had his shot.
Yeah, but this is the thing. So in South Africa, I don't think he was awful, but I don't think he offered what I'd want for more of the 13. Like what a JJ can, what a Manu can.
For me,
But
in
Eddie
South
was
Africa,
talking about.
he didn't even look at any point like he was offering anything either. It wasn't like he didn't have great games. He never really looked like he was going to be causing any problems for the opposition.
So I am inclined to agree, which is weird because in the Premiership he does cause huge problems. But Eddie was saying, don't forget after tour, Eddie was saying how well he thought Henry Slade had done.
Eddie's done that quite a few times though, where he'll talk up a player after a game, and then it turns out that player's been dropped, or you know, I wonder whether part of that is about protecting people that he knows actually haven't done particularly well. You know, why focus on the guy that's really not done very much? I wonder if it's like a kind of comfort blanket or something that he's wrapping around the players. I don't know.
It could be. But
if we're going on our opinion rather than what we think Eddie will choose,
yeah. So
I think you're right. I think it's an interesting one because obviously if you're looking at Tuolangi then and he's not available, do you find a like for like replacement in like a Bentio? And try and make that work. You know, he's a lion. He's definitely a good player, and he's been out for a while, so we haven't seen him in an England shirt for a little while. Or do you go down the JJ route, or perhaps someone different, and look for that extra playmaker and essentially change your tactics?
So, and I always get this wrong. Lazowski, whatever. He's playing well, and he actually has done a few bits in an England top. So. He's another option at 13. So I'm going to put this on you first. Who have you got at 13?
It's a bit boring, but I think I'm going JJ. I just think experience trumps anything else.
He's not playing at the moment, is he? Because he's injured.
No, but the question was assuming everyone else is available.
Assuming everyone else is available. How about Elliot Daly?
I mean, I liked the idea of it, but I don't think we're gonna see it.
Yeah, but don't forget we're going on what we want, not what we think Eddie will do.
Okay, yeah.
Yes,
I do like that, but then I'd have Good at fullback, and then we're getting into the realms of what Eddie would probably see as, you know, fiction. So I'm going to go JJ, assuming that he's fit, obviously, just because I think that experience is valuable. But yeah, I'm going to go Elliot Daly. I wouldn't be upset with Daly, and then Good at fullback.
Yes, good, thank you. I'm going to go Elliot Daly at 13.
Okay, and then part two of the question then was similar, but with Manu available, and if hypothetically speaking Farrell went to 10, who do you have as the centre partner? And I guess which way round would you have? Would you have Manu at 13?
I have an exact answer to this. I would go, if Farrell's at 10, I would go Farrell, Eastman, Manu.
Oh, interesting.
I think Kyle Eastman looked good this weekend.
Yeah.
I think he plays really flat on the line. He draws defenders. If you've got someone like Eastman drawing those defenders, because he's a danger man himself.
Yeah.
And then you've got Manu charging. That opens up some gaps. If the people are holding off for Manu, I think Eastman can go through the gaps. So if it's Farrell at 10, I go Farrell, Eastman, Manu in that like 10, 12, 13 in that order.
Interesting.
How about you?
I am going to decline to answer because it's all getting too much for me.
I'm so sorry, mate.
I quite like what you're suggesting.
Getting a bit emotional.
I am. It's all getting too much. Too many things that we want to see that we're not seeing. Too many unknowns.
You've been busy all week buying me a birthday present. It's just hectic. It's just hectic.
Exactly. And what do you get for the man who has everything? An empty cardboard box.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna move on from that one. I don't think he asked us anything else, did he? He just then commented on the fact he commented on Cipriani's selection and the fact that Eddie picked him because he wanted to, not because everyone was putting pressure on him. And I think he's absolutely right. Eddie Jones isn't, Eddie Jones almost has a habit of going the other way. If he feels like there's too much pressure for him to do something, it's almost like he does the exact opposite, as if to kind of make a point, like, don't tell me what to do. So 100% he selected Cipriani for the right reasons. I know there's been lots of chat about how he doesn't really like Cipriani, he wants Ford, but I don't believe that he caved to pressure. And I think Cipriani's doing what he needs to do to keep that position. I think, the way this game works, and rightly so, is that if you manage to fight your way in, then it's for the other person to outplay you and fight their way back past you again. And yes, George Ford is playing well again for Leicester. But
he had a cracking game. Game at the weekend.
But so did Cipriani, and I think on that basis, Cipriani retains his spot, in my opinion.
I agree. Cipriani is just too hard to ignore right now. But then we thought that Don Armand before. But sure. I think Cipriani is too hard to ignore right now.
So there you
go. Good questions, Jay.
Absolutely. So, shall we turn to... It'll probably be a slightly shorter one this week, guys, but shall we turn to the Premiership? Because it was a pretty interesting weekend again. I mean, I think the first 4 games or something all resulted in a double bonus point, i.e. that both teams scored 4 tries, which is interesting considering that last week I was chatting about how Northern Hemisphere rugby was less about scoring tries and bad defence, and it seems that that's exactly what it was this weekend.
So here's a question on that. So, looking at those games, the attacks have become really they've become interesting. Do you think it's a case of the defence, the defence strategies aren't keeping up with the attack strategies, or do you think it's just the games becoming more open?
I think defence.
Yeah, I think defensively, with the way this sort of behind the back ball, people running at depth, I think the defence haven't yet figured out how to deal with that, and it is opening up. And with the quality of players we have actually got in the Premiership at the moment in the backs, some just absolute class attackers, I think the defence hasn't yet caught up with how to properly sort of marshal this, because defences are being found out. But it's happening across the board. It's not, one team's not shooting ahead of the others.
Yeah.
But
it'll be very interesting. It puts us in, I think, in the past, Southern Hemisphere divide has sort of seen the Southern Hemisphere have always had a bit of a focus on the attacking rugby, and the Northern Hemisphere perhaps a little bit more on the defensive side. And so when they play, when the North plays the North or the South plays the South, you see these games that are quite kind of level. And when the two come together, it tends to go one way or the other, obviously. Call a result.
Yeah.
But it's why you see New Zealand, destroy Australia and then have a close victory against England or Ireland, for example, because I think...
Or Argentina.
Or Argentina, exactly. Because I think, it's those defences that have caused them a few more problems. And I think that the attacking game, when you focus too much on attack and then a defence starts to kind of work against you, you kind of like, well, what do we do now? A little bit like we saw from England in the Six Nations. They were reliant on a sort of a wicked fast attack, which suddenly they weren't able to do anymore because they were being counter-rucked and competed against in a way that they weren't used to, and so they weren't getting that quick ball, so they weren't able to, we knew they could do it if they had the right ball, but they weren't getting that right ball because teams had cottoned on to what they were doing and had come up with a solution to deal with it. So I don't know what I want to see more of. Obviously we all want to see tries. That's one of the best parts of rugby, but I like seeing the kind of the complete game. I like seeing if England are playing against a side and they're able to shut down their attack.
I like seeing that. One of the issues now, because you look at the old Saracens versus with Gustard when he was defence coach and the Wolf Pack, and they go hunting and put a big press on. The problem is now, if you've got people playing at 10 who can throw 21-metre no-look passes over all the fast press, then that sort of takes away that defensive option anyway.
As amazing as it was to see him doing that, I think we just need to bear in mind that those aren't going to work 10 times out of 10.
No,
they're going to fail more often than they succeed, especially the blind passes like that. So we don't want him to get into the habit of doing that kind of thing every time he gets the ball, and I'm sure he won't.
Oh, no, of course he won't.
But as long as he's doing it and it's resulting in a try, I'm not going to complain too much, particularly if he's doing it in an England shirt. But what we don't want to see is the things like that happening and then being intercepted and tries being scored against the run of play. because that
Yeah.
particularly in knockout rugby, that can be the difference, can't it? So.
And the both things you've got to say to Cipriani is both passes been done is with a penalty advantage.
Yes.
So everyone sort of takes away from that being as good a pass because it's penalty advantage. I think it's
the knowledge
you know,
to
it's
know
just smart
that
rugby.
in that split second that I can do this because it doesn't matter if it doesn't go right.
Yeah, and
yeah, that's true. That's very true.
So I think that adds value to the pass to an extent as well. Also, the other thing you've got to look at, oh my God, watching Manu's try at the weekend when like brushed off some players ran through, that just brought back memories. That made me the happiest. That was the happiest bit of the weekend for me. I preferred that to Sips' pass. But if you've got fast press defence, and one of the things Saracens actually had is you'd look at their stats and they'd have missed tackles because they were running up so quickly that they weren't necessarily making every tackle, but what they were doing is slowing down the play because they might sort of half stop someone. But if you've got, you know, the press coming up that quickly, if you've got Manu at pace, you're not slowing him down.
No, and I think the thing with Manu, he's so abnormally strong.
Oh my God, it's
in
insane.
that channel that actually, even if they do press, he has the ability to kind of pump those legs or those tree trunks and get through, you know, and break away from that press defence, which suddenly then opens everything up because there's nothing in behind, or you know, there's one man or whatever. So I just think there's even more reason why we need a player like that in the centre to break up a rush defence.
It's, mate, just watching him run through it reminds me of Ben Cooper chasing an ice cream van. He will just smash through everything just to get there. And Manu has got, it's unbelievable the power he's got. I mean, yes, he's huge. Yes, he's massive. But a lot of players are huge and massive. But he just has that extra bit of power that no one else seems to have.
Yeah. Well, it's like when you look at Billy versus Nathan Hughes, you know, there's no reason why Nathan Hughes shouldn't be doing the same kind of damage, but he doesn't. Even at club level,
he's bigger.
Even at club level, you know, Nathan Hughes, it's the same thing. You know, he picks up the ball, he goes in hard, and he doesn't really go anywhere. And yeah, he might set the ball back and retain possession for his side, but there's no real value of you being at the back of the scrum, picking and going if you're not causing problems for the opposition. If they're dealing with you comfortably, then I don't know. It doesn't work for me then. So yeah, and then it's the same out in the centre. I just think we need Manu Tuilagi badly for the World Cup. We need him to have got through his injury problems. We need him to not just get back in form. He's getting there already, but you know, just get back to where he was. And you know, it'll help. I think just set us back on the right track again.
Yeah, we've got to. The whole injury thing, like, it is ridiculous to you know, second guess when an injury's coming. But because Manu's had so many, it's almost in your head that you assume it is going to happen. But let's pray not, because one of the things I'm liking at the moment, the England boys do seem to be raising their game. It's a World Cup year with regards to rugby season year, and they know they have to put in a performance, and the England guys are stepping up. Elliot Daly's just his dummy, proper old school, like schoolboy dummy. I absolutely loved it. And then to get through that gap, put on the wheels, score. You know, he's shown that bit of class that he has. Henry Slade was actually really quality at the weekend. And also, he didn't gas Daly, but I didn't realise how quick Henry Slade was. Once he got through the gap, he wasn't being caught. He's got a bit more gas to him than I realised.
I mean, you're fighting for a man who I just think has you know, whether or not Eddie feels the same way, I just think he's had his shot and he didn't take it, and I just think
But he's so handsome. I want him involved.
It's so competitive. I just think you can't afford to not take your chance when it's given to you. And it's not like he had a one-off game. It's not like, you know, he was called up at the last minute for a one-off game. I mean, he went on tour and didn't manage to even have any real moments that made you go, "Oh, hello," you know.
No, I know
missing something here. And I just think if you with that much of an opportunity to not deliver, I think it's reasonable to say, "Oh, actually, you've had your shot and you didn't take it." And there are other players who need to get their chance.
I don't think Eddie's ready to say that, though. I'd love to know where Eddie's head is at with them. So, like, where it genuinely is at.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, I mean, ultimately it might be irrelevant because if Manu is fit, we're fairly confident from things Eddie said in the past that Manu is his man. Albeit he hasn't been involved yet. But he was at the training camp, wasn't he? Or was he still
Who? Slady?
Manu.
Manu. He wasn't at the one in Teddington.
Didn't he go along but non-playing because he was still recovering or something? No, maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. Wrong. It'll be interesting to see whether or not he's in the next one. Hopefully he will because, who he is, what Eddie thinks of him, and the fact that he's getting back into form is exciting for English rugby.
Okay, yeah, agreed. So to change it a bit, move from the backs to the forwards, move from the good-looking fellas to the fatties. Brad Shields has had an injury. Looks like I can't remember what it is. Broken eye socket, is it, or something?
Cheekbone.
Fractured cheekbone.
Yeah.
Does that open the way for my sort of suggestion of Billy at 8, Sam Simmons at 6, and then 7, be it a Tom Curry?
I would love to see Simmons at 6. For some reason, Eddie has made it quite clear that he sees Sam Simmons as an 8, which I don't really understand because he's so. I mean, unless it's a bit like the scrum half debate, he wants a very different person on the bench to cover 8. So you've got a Billy, but if for some, I just don't see why you'd ever take Billy off unless he's injured, though.
But then Sam Simmons can just move over to 8 if he's playing at 6.
I realize, but what I mean is if he's saying to Sam Simmons, I want you to go and basically train to be an 8, build yourself suitably to be the type of 8 that I want you to be. I just don't see him then. I just think we'd have seen him in the 6 shirt. I want to see it, but for some reason Eddie doesn't seem to see it that way. So I would love to see that happen, but I'm not convinced it will.
No, you might be right. How's Robshaw playing? I haven't really sort of heard either way about him. I haven't really watched
have been
him
a bit
closely.
Mixed.
Yeah,
they obviously had a big win in the opening weekend, but I don't think they saw it as a particularly great performance, and then they narrowly lost in a much better performance last weekend. I think Robshaw does what Robshaw does. He's a solid player. I don't think he's wowing people, but it's a difficult one with him. He's another one where I feel like his time is running out. We've said it before. I know he had a good tour, or certainly at times, but I just think there are better options.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's there, and he can always do a job if needed. That sounds like I'm dismissing him. I'm not dismissing him. He's been a great servant to English rugby, but I'm dismissing him. But that'll be interesting to see what happens at that back row. I heard Brian Moore the other day say along the lines of basically saying we don't really have options at 7. I disagree. I think Underhill's playing well. I think Sam Simmons, not Sam Simmons, I think Underhill's playing well. I think the Curry boys, both Curry boys. I mean, Tom Curry didn't play this previous weekend because he had concussion, but from what I understand, he should be back this coming weekend.
Okay.
And who else was I thinking about 7, who now I've completely lost from my head? Matt Kovacic.
Yeah, you've been talking a lot about him.
I have been talking a lot about him. I've been talking a lot about him for a long time. So I think we've got options at 7.
Is Eddie talking about him, do you think?
I don't.
You don't. Simple as that. Boom.
Yeah.
I do not think
I don't think he's talking about him.
Well, in that
case...
But
I'll have a chat. I'll have a word.
You should do.
I will do.
Don Armand, is he 6 or 7?
Don Armand's not your traditional 7. I don't think Don Armand's
according to Eddie, he's not your traditional flanker.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Eddie wants from Don Armand. I don't know what else Don Armand can do. I don't think Don Armand's going to do anything he hasn't done to suddenly get elevated to the England team.
And he's said that himself, and I guess rightly so. It's his career first, and he does what he does for his club, and it works, and they like the way he does it. So it kind of becomes a question of saying, well, look, if what I do is right for England, amazing. If it's not, do I want to try and completely change it in order to get in a team in a pretty competitive position where it's not guaranteed, and then potentially have a negative impact on my club career? Probably not. So yeah, it's frustrating, but I think Eddie's made it quite clear where he stands on this one, and I think it's a bit like Alex Good. I think it's a bit of a done deal now.
Yes, it looks like a long way back for Don Armand to be there, but it's a long season. There will be injuries. There will be players. So here's the part, and this sort of feeds into another area, and this is something I bring up a lot. Teams who are playing well, does that give their players an advantage? I think so. Exeter look on fire. They look like a really good team. They are. Top two are going to be Saracens, Exeter again. I'd be amazed if it's anything else.
Yeah.
But, if you're playing for Exeter, playing well, that does give you a better chance to showcase yourself.
100%. Yeah, I mean, no question. If you're performing well, but I suppose the thing is that for every team, if you're playing for a team that's beating everyone except Exeter and Saracens, I think you're being given a pretty good platform there as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think that's key. I feel sorry for people like Ben Teo, who are kind of lone wolves in terms of trying to impress. How much attention is Eddie Jones giving to teams where there aren't many of his potential players involved, compared to the likes of Saracens and Exeter, where you can see a whole handful of them all on the pitch together, and seeing them work together as well. There's got to be an advantage there. Whereas in Ben Teo's case, it's very much kind of what's he going to do on his own. Well, as we know, it's a team game. You can only do so much on your own. Yeah, you can have moments of genius, but they're not going to win your caps alone. So, he's got a tough road ahead, but he's been doing it for a while, and he's obviously made, in doing so, he has made it into the England side. He has become a Lion, so it's by no means not possible. But yeah, as you say, a massive advantage to be performing well. But everyone just has to keep their heads down and work hard and hope and trust that the best 23 will out. But I mean, speaking of that, Northampton, what are we thinking about? Laws and Hartley.
Well, I mean, Northampton had a good win against Harlequins, obviously. I don't know. I mean, Hartley's not even starting for them yet, but maybe that he did look good when he came on, and that could just be because he's been out for so long. They're easing him back in because I would imagine. He's a better player.
Is he club captain?
He's along those lines. He may even be team captain. I'm not sure, but Hartley, I don't think he's got much to prove from that. No one has made that hooker position their own yet. No. The other guys, look, they had the chance to do that when Hartley was injured, and they haven't. So that's open.
And as we've said now on numerous occasions, England definitely lacked his leadership.
Yes, they did. They did.
I think there was a question, some time ago now about when we were looking at Hartley, and there was lots of chatter about getting rid of him, and people saying, how much value can you add for the leadership side of what he brings to the table? And I think, I know we've said it lots, but that tour highlights to me that it's more important than perhaps people initially gave it credit for. And so if he's on form as well, I just see him as a shoo-in.
Well, yeah, especially and his line-out throwing. I still, in my head, have Luke Cowan-Dickey as the best playing hooker at the moment, but things can change. I mean, I don't think any of the hookers have been incredible for the start of the season, but I think they've all been solid from what I've seen. So you mentioned that with regards to some Northampton. Let's have a look at the Premiership as a whole. So obviously there was chat this week about I can't remember the name of them, but coming in to buy a 51% stake in the Premiership. The Premiership has said they don't want to give away a majority stake. All that business side, so be it. I see value in it because it sort of resets the clubs financially. But I'm actually going to something slightly different with this. Looking at the Pro 14 in Ireland, central contracts. Are we missing a trick here? Or do we... So you look at Leinster and the likes of Johnny Sexton, Sean O'Brien haven't played. I mean, they're well rested. They will be fit as you like for the Ireland games. But then it takes away something from... It does take away something from the Pro 14 and Leinster as a whole.
Yeah, and match fitness.
Yeah, well, match fitness, but the problem, the thing is, come the Ireland games, they're still training hard, and then they'll be given a few run-out matches to run out and get their match fitness. So, in theory, they will be absolutely buzzing come the Ireland games.
Yeah,
because Ireland's managed it very well.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to argue because of the results that Ireland have had recently. But I worry that if you do something like that and you say, "Oh, I'll give them some run-outs to get a bit of match fitness," but ultimately resting, it sounds a bit American football-y, doesn't it? It's sort of more focused on resting players and just utilising them for the, rare occasion. I want to see that our kind of stars in action in the big games week in, week out. I don't want to only see them put on an England shirt, and I also feel like it's pretty tough on the guys who are fighting for a position. You know, if Johnny Sexton's never playing,
that's the point. Yeah,
yeah. If Johnny Sexton's never playing because they're resting him for Ireland, and you're a fly half who has ambitions to become Ireland's next fly half, are you not just constantly feeling like, well, no one can even compare me to him because they've already decided he's the guy, and they're not even going to play him so as to keep him fit. So they're going to play me constantly and then say that I'm too tired. I don't know. I just feel like the competition goes away within the group.
So could that be a downfall of the English thing? Like perversely, that we have a bigger player pool, we have more competition for places, that it wouldn't work. That exactly like you say, we're in Ireland because there's probably less choices for each position. It might work a bit better, whereas it wouldn't with England. So I guess simple question, sort of yes or no. Would you want the English team to be centrally contracted?
No.
Okay.
Would you?
Yes.
Okay.
But all the points you've made, I like. Why I'd like them centrally contracted is purely to manage their amount of games. At the moment, I just think they're playing too many games. I wouldn't want it to be like the Irish model where... Do you know what I'd like? I think in Wales, it's 60-40. So the WRU pays 60% and the clubs pay 40%. What I'd like is to see 40-60. So the clubs still have
kind of
the majority say.
Yeah.
So the clubs pay 60% of their wages, England pay 40% of their wages. So the clubs still have a majority say, so they're still having to play a bit. But England can still say, okay, look, we still pay 40%. I want them rested a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the problem becomes, who ultimately makes the call. Because if England is saying, I want them rested a bit more, they can do that now. But if the clubs,
they can,
as a 60% shareholder, have the ultimate right to say no, we're making that decision that we're not going to rest them more because we need them for whatever it is we're doing at club level.
Yeah, but the difference now is the clubs can say no, you're doing that. Whereas in future, if the clubs say no, England are like, all right, we won't pay 40% of their wages, and your wage bill is now considerably higher. So, guys, if you're listening, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this, actually, because as you can probably tell, Andy and I do not have the solution.
No. I mean, no, we don't have this. It's true. It's rare that we don't have the solution.
I know, mate. Normally we know everything about everything, but for some reason this one we don't seem to know.
I'm sure we'll come up with a theory by next week.
Yeah, of course. Some diverse theory which will include George Ford's cousins and dodgy policemen in Jersey and stuff. But I'm sure we'll come up with something.
Exactly. Well, have you got anything else that you wanted to go through today? Because I think otherwise,
no. I think today that's covered covered the main points.
Covered everything that's going on. We don't want to go into too much about the Premiership because we've made a point of saying that's not what we're here to do. So I think, we've picked out a few key points. We've discussed those, and hopefully you guys are satisfied for another week. As always, we call on you to rate us and review us on iTunes. Give us the old 5-star rating. They're always nice to see. And get in touch either through your reviews, or you can email us, englandrugbypod@gmail.com. You can get in touch with us on social media at englandrugbypod. And keep tuning in. Share, spread the love amongst your friends. Let them know what's going on.
But guys, it's my birthday tomorrow. It's a birthday present. If you haven't, or if you've got the ability, please can you all give me 5-star rating on iTunes. That would be a lovely birthday present.
Oh, nice. I can do that, mate.
Oh, thanks, mate. I appreciate it. No, nice. Oh, very close, my friend. No, I'm afraid you're held to higher expectations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, on that note,
not higher
guys,
standards, higher expectations.
Okay, expectations. On that note, guys, thank you again for listening, and join us again next week.
Cheers, guys.